Well, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We are looking at another YouTube video on calligraphy. And today what we are going to be working on is the Pledge of Allegiance. The Pledge of Allegiance is a very important document that wasn't really completely put in its present form until after World War II. And I might tell you that story a little bit as we get going here. But the Pledge of Allegiance is what we're going to work on. And I have in your packet or in your Google Classroom, I have a copy of this put in there so that you could take a look at it so that you can get the whole thing spelled right. But what I'm looking at is I want to find a way to make this make sense with the spacing. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be using one of these line sheets with a white sheet over top of it. But for the first time, this time, what I want you to start to consider is your total placement on the page along with the margins. And you can see that the margins here I have kind of spaced out with 3/4 of an inch on either side and 1 inch on the top and 1 inch on the bottom. So what I'm going to start doing here is I'm going to take this white sheet of paper and I'm just going to take a ruler and put in some margins. I'm going to start with the two sides, and I'm just going to put a couple lines at 3/4 of an inch from the edge on the sides. And I want to do this very, very lightly, so that all of these lines are going to be erased. This is just going to be your margin. The margin on the side of a sheet of paper like this is just so that the lettering won't go too close to the edge or over the edge. That would be kind of disastrous. So I want to leave some room, some white on the sides and the top and the bottom so that it's pleasing to the eye. A piece of a book or piece of paper that has writing on it without margins at all is just very difficult to look at. I'm going to put 1 inch at the top. And you've used rulers before, even in Google Classroom. I've had you measure out your value scales this way, and each one of those were an inch. So I'm going to put 1 inch at the top, 1 inch at the bottom, and 3/4 of an inch on the sides. And let's just double check this. I measured two times, and then that gives you a pretty good idea. So 3/4 of an inch. If I put this a little bit more right in the middle, let me get this a little closer. Show you how this works. All right, 3/4 of an inch. Here's the 1 inch line. 3/4 of an inch goes right to 3/4 of the way, 3/4 of the way across. This would be a 1/2 inch. There's a 1/4, 1/2, 3/4. There's 1 inch. All right, at the top and the bottom, I have 1 inch. So there you see it. All right, let's back this back out a little bit. Now that I have my margin on there, what I'm going to do is put this white sheet of paper on top of the lined sheet of paper. And you can see the lines coming through there fairly well. Let's see if I can straighten this up a little bit. You can see those lines. Now, what I'd like to do, if this is my top margin and this is my bottom margin down here, now I already have this all figured out. When I did this pledge the first time, I had to write it out in pencil 3, maybe 4 times until I could figure out how I wanted the spacing to go. So when you start it, we're going to start with I pledge allegiance to the flag. All right, and you can set this up a lot of different ways if you would like. You could even set it up going this way if you wanted to use your lines like that. You could set it up going horizontally. I'm going to have mine vertically just for the sake of keeping it a little bit easier. And I have some examples in my photos of things that students have done with this, very clever things that they have done with this over the years. And then hopefully we will be back in class on Wednesday, and you can add some pastel or color to this also. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to line up my top margin right here with this dotted line right there. So that dotted line is going to be the ascender, and I'm going to go just like that. I might get a couple pieces of tape. I'm going to come over here, take off a couple little pieces of masking tape. Some of my students like to do this. And I'm just going to put a little bit of tape on the top here to tape those two together. Now I can lift up my sheet and I can see that line sheet underneath. Okay, so if I want to fill this out and try to figure out how to do it, the first time I would just kind of use these lines and write it out in pencil to get an idea where things fit. Now I've already done this, so I'm just going to show you, how I've done it in the past. I went like this and said, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the, because I wanted to try to fit United States of America all in one line, and to the republic for which it stands, because those lines kind of have a good stopping point to it. One nation under God, comma, and then I wanted indivisible all by itself. And then here I had to kind of pack these in with liberty and justice, and then I wanted at the bottom for all. And you can see that it comes down right about to this 1 inch at the bottom. Now that took some time to try it a few times. It took some effort. It took some trial and error, sometimes lots of error, to get it to work that way. But if you would like to here, just kind of use the same lines that I did, that's okay. So I'm going to start this out. If I want, I pledge allegiance. I'm going to start from the side here a little bit. So I'm going to leave a little bit more of a margin there. And you can see that this I is not going to go up to the ascender. This is the top line up there for the margin is the ascender. So I'm going to go I pledge. Now I'm just going to kind of put these letters in here in pencil, leaving about an O in between. I pledge allegiance, ALLEGIANCE. Now, this is a little bit bigger than I had it before. It's kind of close to the margin over here. So it probably would be better if I would start this a little bit further over this way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just fix this some. I'm going to take this back out just to let you know that when you start it out in pencil, sometimes you have to do it a couple times to get that to work decent. I'm going to try this again. I pledge, P-L-E-D-G-E. And I'm going to try to do the letters not quite so fat. Here's, leave room for an O, allegiance, A-L-L-E-G-I-A-N-C-E. All right. So when I look here, the E, there's about that much space to the edge, and the I, that's pretty well centered. That looks better. All right, now I'm going to go down to the next row. I pledge allegiance then to, I'm going to start this to the flag of the, but now I'm going to look at something else. Do you see where the P and the G come down? Here for the ascenders and descenders. These are the descenders. I don't want my ascenders of the next line to bump into those. So I want to try to get them to finagle, that's a word my mom used a lot, finagle. I'm going to try to work it so that this H doesn't run into the G or the P. And this F doesn't run into that. To the flag of the. So as I write this out, I'm actually going to put in the first. So I'm going to write in the so that it doesn't run into this G. Then over here I can write to the flag I'm going to leave an O of. All right, so that worked out okay because I didn't want this F running into that G of the. So sometimes you have to think about that when you're writing calligraphy. You have to kind of think about your ascenders and your descenders, and you can play with that a little bit as it's working its way across. Let me get this a little bit larger for you to see. Okay, so I pledge allegiance to the flag of the. Now I'm going to come down to the next row here of the, and I'm going to start way over here at the end, united. Now I'm going to have to really kind of squeeze this in here a little bit. So I'm going to have to go a little bit tighter. United. My D and my F are okay. States. The S doesn't come all the way up, so I'm okay. States of. Now this F and that F are going to be close. Of America. There we go. And to the republic. So I'm going to come down here. I'm going to go maybe about right about here. And to the, and I'm doing these letters in pencil, just kind of rough, to the republic. Because we live in a republic, we do not live in a democracy. We have a democratic republic. A republic means we have people who represent us. In the government, but it's not a democracy. It's not a majority rules type of situation. Our founders did not want a democracy. They saw in Europe what happened with pure democracies didn't work really well. And to the republic for which it stands. So I'm going to bring this over this way a little bit. For, now I'm up to a double, a sender here through the double solid. For which it stands, for which it stands, colon, one nation. I'm going to see if mine are lining up okay here. Yep, I'm pretty good. One, I'm going to bring it over this way a little bit. One nation under God is a little bit longer. I don't really have, the only ascender, the only descender I have to worry about is at 4, and it's not a problem with the 1. One nation. Under God. Now the under God part was added after World War II. When Dwight D. Eisenhower was president of the United States, and he had seen what happened in World War II. And he saw what happened when a nation was not under God, where they believed that their leaders were gods. And in Germany, the ruler there, uh, Adolf Hitler, pretty much called himself a god. And Eisenhower went to church one Sunday, and his pastor was preaching on the fact that if we have a nation whose ruler thinks they're God, we're in trouble, because if someone thinks that they're God, they can make up whatever rules they want anytime they want. But if you're under God, then you're under God's rules and under God's laws. So the pastor said, we should be one nation under God. Dwight D. Eisenhower went to Congress the next day, because he was president of the United States, and he said, I think we need to add under God to our Pledge of Allegiance. And it was passed through with a very high margin, very, very quickly. And all of a sudden, the Pledge of Allegiance was changed to one nation under God. And it wasn't until after World War II. I always thought it was there from the beginning, but it wasn't. All right, the next is indivisible. When I look here at indivisible, I can see that this, okay, I'm going to come down to the next double solid line. This I want to be kind of by itself. Indivisible, V-I-S-I-B-L-E, indivisible, comma. Now I could say with liberty and, but I'm going to try to put with liberty and justice, and then down here for all. Now you may use this spacing if you want to. You can space it differently if you want to. With liberty, and that's a capital L, with liberty and justice. Now, if you notice, I'm not putting the zeros or the O's in between. I'm just kind of spacing it because I've been doing this for a while. So let's move that J over a little bit. Let's move that over to here. And justice, there we go. And then drop it down here. Now, when I have the for all, I want to miss this and the J there. So I'm going to start with my for. I'm going to start with the F over here. For all. There. Now I'm going to look at the whole thing. Let's back this back off. So when you do it in pencil at first, it doesn't, look so very astounding. But I want to be able to have a good margin at the top, a good margin at the bottom, a good margin on the sides, and I would like it to space out so that it looks good. The whole point of this is the calligraphy unit is not about learning how to do your alphabet. It's not about even learning how to write. It's about learning how to write in a way that looks really good. All right, so now I'm going to take my marker and I'm going to zero in a little bit on this. And I'm not going to do the marker over the whole thing. I'll just get this started for you so that you can kind of see how this works. All right, so let's go just a little bit closer. Now I'm using a Roman I here. So I'm going to go over top of my letters. Now when I go over top of the letters, this is a little bit close right here, I'm finding. So I'm going to leave a little bit more room. I'm going to move this over just a little bit. And then I'm going to try to pack this in. So my P just went over top of the L in pencil. That's okay. This is just kind of to know where I want to go. P, L, E, D, so I was able to fit pledge in there pretty much right where I wanted it to be before. And now with this allegiance, let's move this over a little bit. I want to leave a space there. Here's allegiance. I'm going to start this just a little bit earlier. Okay, so as I'm working here, the G, I'm off from my pencil lines a little bit. That's okay, because now I'm doing it with a marker and it's a little bit more realistic. With the pencil, I was just kind of guessing. A-L-L-E-G-I, up, down, up, A-N-C-E. I pledge allegiance. Okay, so now I'm going to drop down to the next line. I'll do one more line here and show you how this works. Let's line this up. All right, 2, and that looks okay. 2, across this 2. Now, if you're looking at the E, you see the H, how it pops up, and I would like to get the E to line up with it. So I'm going to do a wax on and a wax off. And you see how the H and the E line up together. It looks like it's kind of a cursive type of thing there. That looks pretty good. The ascender of the H is not running into the descender of the G. And all of that was planned. It's not random. It's not by chance. And I want this F to be on the other side of that G. So I'm going to move this over just a bit. I'm going to move this the over just a little bit. So I'm not exactly on my pencil lines. My pencil lines are there to help guide me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the, let's go just out just a little bit. I will do one more line and I'll show you how I'm going to try to avoid some of that stuff. Okay, of the United States of America. Okay, so for United, up, down, up. So that missed there. I'm just going to take a look and see the peak. So I still have that line sheet underneath here. I'm using the lines. You can barely see the lines underneath there, but I'm using those lines to help guide this. All right, states. Now be careful not to misspell. I made states a little bit bigger. Now I'm going to have to get of a little bit smaller. I wanted it to miss that F right there. So now I'm going to need to put America right in here. Just able to fit it in. So that little bit of the flare goes outside of the 1-inch mark, but that's not bad. All right. And then what you do is you continue all the way down the page here. Now, you may have to do this more than once, especially with the pencil, in order to get this to work. I'm just kind of giving you an idea of how to set this all up. Now, once you get it so that you have all of the calligraphy done in the marker, then at the end, I have a kneaded eraser here, but I'll also show you how you can use another one. I like to use a kneaded eraser. I'll go back in a little tighter. And then I'm going to very, very carefully erase out. Make sure that your pen is dry. I would say give it a minute. Let's work up here a little bit. All right. Very carefully erase all of the pencil lines. So you want to do the pencil lines very lightly. You don't want to do them dark, because if you do them dark, you're not going to be able to erase that back out. You can also use a factus eraser like this to erase that out. Be careful when you're erasing not to crimp up the page. You can also use the back, especially for little stubborn parts. You can just use the back of a regular pencil. It works fine too. I like to use a little bit bigger eraser than that. So then when you take out all of those lines, it looks like you just freehanded this right on a sheet of white paper. Then you can take this, take the lined paper out from underneath, and you're all set. Now, I don't expect you to have this whole thing done in one class session. It would take me probably a good hour, hour and a half to get this done. And we're 26 minutes into this video right now. So what I'd like you to do is get it set up today, write it all out in pencil, and maybe that's as much as you can do. And then tomorrow, hopefully, if we're back into class, you can fill it out the rest of the way with your marker. And then if we are back in class, I'll show you how you can take some pastels and add color to it, which is really kind of fun to do. Yeah, I'll show you that when we get back to class, because you don't have any of those at home. So the whole idea here is to set up, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. Set up the whole pledge. Give yourself 3/4 of an inch on either side, works really well. And then 1 inch at the top and the bottom. And when you're done, you know, you're not going to have these dotted lines around there. I just put those on there so that you could see them here. And you could find that in your Google Classroom. But try the pledge. It's a good chance to start to learn spacing and setting things up using margins. So today the whole idea is using margins and using margins in between your words and setting up your words so that they look good on the page. All right, I hope that you have a pretty good time with this and you can get started with it. And this is a 2-day assignment actually, starting today and then finishing up tomorrow. So thank you much, and I hope you enjoyed this.